Welcome to a special Q&A episode of Podcast Der Toten. My name's Red.
Matt.
Hello, I'm Dak.
It's Nabber's Honor.
We put out a questionnaire on Twitter asking people to send their questions, and now we're going to take a look at all of them, try to answer them as best as we can. So, start with our first one. This is from Eric Maynard, who's a friend of COD's. Are you kidding me? Who would be calling me at this hour?
CIA. I think some of those questions may not need to be answered.
So our first question is from Eric Maynard, who is a friend of COD's. So he kind of cheated a little bit. He's got 4 questions, it looks like. So first question, how was Richtofen breathing in the MPD radio? If it's an oxygenated chamber, how did the lighter not blow him up? Thoughts on that?
The simple answer would just be that there's not the proportion of oxygen is not, like in the high double digits or something to force a flame explosion, so to speak.
Yeah.
Why there would be like other elements like nitrogen and stuff like that in the air, I don't know. But that would be the only thing I can come up with.
I think maybe the MPD could have been if it's in some sort of just cave in the bottom of the moon, or like somewhere in the moon, it could be like it was teleported there with, Earth-like oxygen for some human to find in the future. I don't know.
And the specific radio they're referring to, right? Like, they're not saying it's not Richtofen's in the MPD, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. This is a moon. This is him finding it for the first time. He shows up in a dark cave and he lights a lighter to see it.
Yeah, I guess I always assumed because of the connection between Shang and maybe it's the right amount of oxygen is sort of teleported there. The other thing too, if the Shadow Man wanted him to find this, I guess it's not gonna literally blow up in his face, so maybe they can mess with the chemistry of things.
Well, I think a similarly appropriate response to that would be if there was too much oxygen, right? If it was a purely oxygenated environment, Richtofen wouldn't be able to breathe. The amount of oxygen that we actually intake with each breath is far more diluted than we think. There are a lot of other chemicals, like you said, nitrogen especially takes up the majority of the air that we breathe. So
right. So it being an oxygenated chamber doesn't actually tell us that much. That's it's all about the ratio.
Okay, that was a solid answer. I was not expecting that. Okay. Next one. Who is Old Man Fringle? What do you guys have? I think I know, but I don't know. I don't know, but I know what could happen.
I'm interested to hear your answer. I know I said that I had an answer, but I'm interested to hear your answer because I think mine's a bit of a downer answer. So let's hear it from someone who feels a little bit more confident, Rad.
Well, I was just gonna say, so Old Man Fringle comes from one of the Wonder Fizz machines in Black Ops 4. He's in one of the jingles that kind of describes how he created Wonder Fizz.
Old Man Fringle, well, he sat up in his bed. He said, "Oh my stars, there's an idea in my head. Don't know how it works, but it'll give you lots of perks. It's dangerous and glowing Wonder Fizz. You won't know where you're going, Wonder Fizz. You drink yourself plenty of Wonder Fizz.
Wonderful Wonder Fizz."
And I was gonna say we're gonna find out in 10 years, just like we did with Jet Brown.
So that's a prediction that we're gonna see Aether again in 10 years. Mark your calendars, folks. 10 years from now, this place, this time.
Aether's not going anywhere.
My response to that would be, I don't think it matters who Old Man Fringle is, and I'm serious. This is my answer. I don't think it matters. All respect to Eric. Eric, appreciate you and all the contributions you made to the community. I would say, with all due respect, this question isn't necessarily one of them.
What a hater.
Yeah, no, that came off a little bit harsh. I really didn't mean it that way. But I think he asked the question that makes me want to answer it reasonably. In that sense, is that not everything that's mentioned is going to have a rational answer. It's like Jugga Girl.
Right.
Jugga Girl was never. She's not a canonized character or anything. She's. She's a Dempsey's fantasy of whoever sang that song. who knows who she even was? It doesn't matter. I do have one thing to note, though, is that it is called Wunderfizz. We call it Wonderfizz. It's Wunderfizz, I assume, the way it's spelled. And there was actually a pretty strong fascination prior to World War II and up until World War II in Germany with the Texas Rangers because of a German Western author named Karl May. He wrote American Westerns. And apparently even Adolf Hitler was a fan. So I had this random thought, and this will be the end of my answer to the question, is the possibility that perhaps the song is actually sung by an American POW that was captured by the Nazis, and, we have the idea that Monty reached out to them, Group 935, to kind of spark the idea for the perks, and he actually had musical talent. So they come to him, they had this idea for the initial machine that generates the perks, and they say, hey, write us a song. And so he makes up Old Man Fringle.
Once again, I'm impressed. So
I almost wonder if the German name, obviously, unless, I don't know, maybe he's has some connection to, German ancestry. But the Oh My Stars, I feel like that's like, the name, everything makes me think he's somehow connected to Buried. And just that Oh My Stars, that, kind of adage reminds me of someone from like the South or West. Who knows? Maybe if there's an idea in his head and it was given by Monty or the Shadow Man, I guess they could have given him the name Wonderfizz to begin with.
he can just be a guy that was influenced by Monty or whatever.
Yeah, because he seems like a fringy kind of old crazy Western hermit or something who comes up with this miracle device. And now it's called the Wonderfizz.
Okay, let's go on to the next question. The next question: who is behind the door in the fire trap room in Chronicles Kino? So this is pretty obscure. We kind of just listened to it today. This one, well, I'll put up a clip of it right now. So this is like, I don't know, what do you make of that? Who do you think it is, and what do you think they're doing?
I feel like there's nothing concrete. I feel like everything said is definitely speculation. It sounded like
a good starting point.
Yeah. Because you barely can make anything out what he's saying. I thought I heard father. It's essentially rambling. It could either be, some just insane rambling, or
let's describe. Okay, so we hear a voice doing some sort of rambling. I think Rad and I said, and I don't know, Matt, if you agreed or heard something else. I heard like chains.
Yeah, we heard zombie sounds,
some sound effects. Right, the zombie sound, I couldn't tell. Right, that's not in game. That's there. So there's a zombie, there's chains, and there's this guy muttering to himself. And so it's, I want to think it's Maxis, and it's like, it's test subject like 26, or I don't know, something like that. But
the voice sounded like someone we haven't heard. It sounded almost like an English speaker, right?
That's the only reason I think it can't be Maxis, just because they have. The guy that voices Nikolai in the studio. I don't see why they wouldn't use him if it was. But I don't know.
Well, what you said.
The mental image that I got from it was, at some part, I almost wondered if he's like praying, like he's almost like kneeling over and kind of like muttering to himself, like in his hands, and because I
Right.
thought I heard father or something. I don't know. Maybe it's the cult of flesh or some type of. I don't know. That's.
Yeah, it
I
did
don't know why
seem it had a
prayer
culty
came to
vibe.
mind.
Yeah, I felt like he was like the chains and like just the way it's slowly being moved. It sounds almost like a culty thing, like he's doing a
Yeah.
ritual.
So it could
Well-
still be some insane rambling, but it's there's some weird esoteric kind of a thing going on as well.
I think what Tack said shouldn't be overlooked because I didn't know you were going to say that, Tack. I was looking up the radio real quick because I couldn't remember what the subject was referred to as. But yeah, patient 26. I think that's the obvious answer. And when you first asked the question, I was going to stay on mute, but I feel like that's actually the most obvious explanation of that. I mean, and if you have someone who is maybe somewhat sentient, or maybe whether that's an indication of sentience or whether that's an indication of madness, either way, I think jumping to the cult conclusion, not to smack you down, I think that's a little bit of a stretch too far.
Well,
But definitely the idea that it's madness.
are you saying
or,
the mumbler is 2-6?
Yeah, the mumbler. I would suggest the mumbler is definitely
Okay.
patient 26.
Oh,
I'm
Um,
curious about that because I know the radios and the timelines say like he gets
Oh, he was
killed. 'cause
killed.
Right, but I mean,
Oh,
he
not to
could have been
shoot you
resurrected
down.
in some way.
yeah, I'm shot down. We say what,
Well,
Rad?
'cause that's something that's really tied to Kino and never really gets brought up again. So I'm kind of into that. Like
Well,
that
like
something happened to him that kept him alive. Like
Or who's to say that he's
Yeah.
not just yet another, he's not patient 27.
Sure.
You know.
maybe like a successful one. Yeah.
Yeah, or rather
I
just
might-
another one that was never he didn't end up getting, losing control and getting killed, and he's just basically still in a holding cell.
But it doesn't kind of rule out that if he's praying or something, like I'm imagining you're damaged enough being
praying,
one of those
sure.
subjects, and like if you've seen Monty or the Shadow Man or something, because we have them, referred to as angels and things like that. Like maybe it is the test subject and he's like praying or something like that.
Yeah, no, I
Too
think
much so.
prayer is a reasonable suggestion. I mean, I wouldn't jump to conclusion that because it was.
Nah,
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying.
it's
The fact that
all
it was slow,
speculation.
yeah, I was saying the fact that it was slow and rambling. I wouldn't say that's like cult-like, but just maybe prayer is reasonable. But I mean, even if he is like on the verge of madness or still retaining some sentience, either way, I think that the idea of him muttering prayers of some form or another to someone or another that's actually a pretty reasonable suggestion.
I'm into it. Yeah, there's a lot of speculation on that one. I'd be interested to see what people think in the comments. So if you have any idea in the comments what you think, let us know. So the last question from Eric Maynard. He says, "Who is zero-base Maxis?" So I guess like where does he originate from? Question.
Yeah, that's all you read.
Okay. I think, and a lot of other people think that he's from the Agonia fracture, which is the one from Gorod Krovi, the one where Maxis kind of goes nuts and he kills Sophia, turns her into a robot, and then he, apparently he seems to disappear. Like Sophia doesn't know where he is. She talks about how Broken Arrow showed him how to open up new worlds. So it seems like he could be the one that, creates the zero base and he finds the Canorium and all that. We'll go on to the next question from Dizzy Bonkers, who is a member of our Discord. He says,
Hey,
why
Dizzy.
did they use rockets to transport stuff to the moon in DE when for Griffin Station to exist, they would need the teleportation link? I think I have an idea of what the answer might be. I'm curious what you guys think.
I always kind of get. It's funny because I was actually just playing Eisendrache a couple days ago. I mean, I could be wrong because I know there is the teleporter that's there, but to me, it always seemed like there is still sort of in the early stages of development. Like there's the jump pads and everything around the map. Like maybe not everything can be transported, or some things it's more efficient to go the other route. Maybe there's not a lot. I don't know.
Well, what I was going to say was, my assumption was that the only reason they sent Dempsey like that was because, they were being chased. They needed like a way to quickly do it. I mean, Darius
Like
got
a
taken
rocket.
over. DE's probably overrun, so there's really no other option. Just put him in a rocket and just send him there. That's like a backup, I guess.
Wouldn't it be easier just to like launch the teleporter and send him through?
Because you can't get into the base, whereas the rocket from
I suppose
outside. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's a suggestion. I mean, there are 2 teleporters in Eisendrache, and you could have. I mean, it could be that there was no one there who knew how to operate it.
Hmm.
I mean, Richtofen was probably the one operating. You probably had
yeah, 'cause, there were all soldiers in that truck. So
Yeah, and you had Groff, you had Richtofen, you had Maxis. I assume like do we agree that Maxis is aware of the moon base in this particular timeline?
Maybe. Yes.
So Maxis is gone. Richtofen is gone, is dead. Groff is on the moon.
Well, I think at this point Maxis would have been aware anyway, right?
Right. So, but the fact is that none of them are at Der Eisendrache, and
Oh yeah.
It was probably safe to say that the secret of how to operate a teleporter was probably well kept. It's not like they wrote up a KB on it and said, "Hey, everybody, read up." So,
right.
I feel like the same thing can be said for rockets, though, right? Like to have the knowledge to launch.
Well,
rockets.
rockets.
Just like an AI.
Probably manuals they left. I think just teleportation is such a well kept thing.
Rockets were military
rocket technology.
It's cheap. That's the problem. The rockets are so expensive. Is the question of why you would ever want to is like
Yeah, but at that point in time.
Say what now?
No, I was gonna say like at this point in time, I feel like right because the Germans were the only ones that had access to rocketry. Like I feel like it would in some ways almost be on par with I mean, obviously teleportation is more in depth, but I don't know. Maybe there's like an AI or something that would launch a rocket. I mean, the rocket isn't that one of the things that happens in the map? The rocket, it will ignite. So maybe it is just an automated thing if no one's there.
Yeah, it might just be set up to do that.
I mean, do we? I mean, what do you think though that regardless? I mean, which one of the two technologies is a truck full of soldiers going to be familiar with? Is that just me jumping to conclusions, or what do y'all think about that possibility?
Well, I mean, considering, I see your point.
I feel like neither.
I mean, tear it apart for reals. I mean, but just a thought.
It might just be just purely like it's the closest thing. We have to get the subject out of here now because we're being pursued.
I just think in some ways a rocket might be more efficient with what you're sending. I don't know, maybe you can send maybe the amount of time it takes to teleport something to the moon or what you can and can't send it. Maybe there needs more power or something, and it's just easier to send it in bulk. I don't know. That's
well, I mean, that is true that teleporter calibration is very precise. Here brings to mind Maxis is tearing a new one for Richtofen. He's saying, did you set up the device correctly? If you had put it to my specifications, it would have worked. So, I mean, they're very clearly precise specifications, in order to teleport things. And I imagine that varies on a case-by-case basis depending on the cargo. Yeah. So, knowing precisely what kind of, exactly how you should calibrate the teleporter for the Dempsey package might not have been immediately apparent.
There could be other things, too, that they needed to send. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, we don't know everything that was in the capsule.
Right. There's just a lot of details we don't know that can't say for sure, I don't think.
It's a good question, though. Very good question.
Yeah. All right. Next question from Kaljitsu, a member of CODS, also former guest on this show. He says, what is the purpose of Samantha's mother in the storyline? I think this is worthy of a tangent.
Uh-oh.
I feel like we've got some pretty strong opinions on this one. Mine not being the strongest, so carry on.
So lay out the facts as we know them.
Okay, facts. There's in the moon loading screen, there's a line that says, it's seemingly written from Samantha's mother's point of view, talking to her, saying, "Have fun with your father in Poland. Your mommy is going to work in Dresden." And I think that's fueled a lot of theories that she went to Dresden and she died in the Dresden bombings, which was this horrible, one of the worst Allied attacks on an Axis nation. There's this horrible bombing that caused a huge fire in the city. So it's tragic setting for her to die. But the problem is the timeline says that she died in childbirth. And so that's kind of where the discrepancy comes in that we're trying to explain. And there's also a deeper meaning. What is her purpose Because it seems like she's, I don't know, maybe I'm grasping at straws, but it seems like she's being led by her mother as like a ghost or something. Or
You're referring
the
to
like
Remember Forever?
Yeah, Remember Forever, and the trailer for Chronicles, where there's like a ghostly apparition in her room.
Well, you
I
have.
feel like
The song's pretty clearly from a motherly point of view.
Yeah, well, there's that line in it that says, shipwrecked childhood dreams smashed to smithereens. I left you here playing games. So, I mean, I find that, I mean, not like incontrovertibly, but like very implicatively like resisting the idea of her having died in childbirth. Because no babies playing games, but you almost feel like the memory of the voice singing the song is the one who actually knew Samantha playing a game.
Well, this might be where the ghostly apparition thing comes in. If you want to, you might not like it, but I mean, you think about like
That's
the
fair.
drawings in Der Eisendrache where she's got like keepers coming in through portals,
I mean, if
showing her
she's,
stuff. So I
yeah,
don't know.
she's like connected to the ether, and with Mob of the Dead, and sort of some connection to the spirit world. Like, maybe she came in contact with her mother again.
Right.
I mean, assuming
That's
like
what I'm thinking.
obviously the line about Dresden, unless that's like some alternate universe or fracture kind of scenario. If it's all, I don't know. I always see it as some type of dropped storyline that was going to go somewhere. I mean, if you take it from the angle that the mother died in childbirth, I mean, maybe it's the first of many emotional scars for Samantha. Like, maybe it's kind of symbolic of all the loss or whatever that would come in her life, and how because of that she couldn't be with her mom, and now she's with her dad, and because she was with her dad and got involved in Richtofen's schemes, so it could just be like that, like the constant strain.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. I think there's like you kind of look at how Samantha acts in like Black Ops 4 compared to like previous iterations, where she's like very, you look in like the animated cutscenes, she looks very like defensive of Eddie. Like she seems to be taking more of like an active role as opposed to a passive one. It seems almost like she's trying to be, a more of a caretaker, more of a. Because like there's that line where Richtofen says, "Samantha told me something. She said, one day everything will be okay."
And that's in reference to, Let's Play Hide and Seek, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think that's when he says that is when you're playing in the Giant. I got a shitpost for you.
Okay.
The line from Remember Forever. I'm here for you, shield you from harm forever. Operation Shield. No, I'm just kidding. That's what I said. It's a shitpost.
Damn it! I knew you would.
I don't know why.
I knew it was. I don't know why I didn't expect.
What if I don't? This is just really random thought, but in the Giant flytrap, when Maxis says like I want to play a game or something like that, what if he's really referring to his wife and not Sam? And like maybe that was like a thing. Like, I don't know. She was like a very like motherly figure, and like after she died, I don't know. Like Samantha was always told the story that she loved playing games or something like that.
Yeah, I think this message, I think, considering it doesn't, mesh with the timeline, I think this is like some sort of fantasy thing. Like either Samantha makes up this story in her head of how she died, and it's not her fault because of childbirth or whatever, or it's like her dad gave her this message as like a
But that's like
cop-out.
so many years though, right? After, yeah, it's such a strange.
Right.
Who knows? I almost feel
Who
like
knows?
fractures might be the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, I
Some
guess.
alternate universe.
We just don't know.
Yes. Okay, I guess we should move on before we go overboard with it. But good question. All right, next question from Johnny. What is the meaning of life?
Just to play zombies.
Yeah. Write endless timelines. Combine Modern Warfare with the Black Ops timeline. Yeah.
The meaning of life. I was actually thinking of something Richtofen said in Buried.
Guns and beer.
He would tell us what it was, but it would make us too sad. But no, it was too sad, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the meaning of life is to not be that thing that makes you so sad. Is that a good enough answer for you?
That's
Yeah.
that's one. That's I'll say
Good answer.
I think find a passion actually useful to society. Don't find like a passion in like killing people. That would be unfortunate. But
Good
you know,
advice.
something useful to society. That'd be nice.
Thank you, Tack. That's actually a prime piece of advice right there.
I think I maybe should have gone first and then let you top it off, but you know, here we are.
No, I think that's a
Okay.
great way to answer.
Good answer. Next question from Nathan Handy. What do you think about the Dark Aether after Tog's ending? I'm really curious what you think. And is Victis alive? Because they are not dead, just stuck in the Dark Aether. Or are they dead?
I really feel like it kind of goes into Tag's ending and everything, at least in my opinion, was sort of rushed. And it seems like banishing everything to the Dark Aether is just their way of saying we're saving this for later. Like, you know, we're going to break,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
the
this is
metaphorical.
Well, I think not only that, I think it's a Han Solo and Carbonite situation where they don't know if they're going to bring him back. They don't want to, maybe, but they could if they want to.
It's the evil in a can trope,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Pandora's box.
There you go.
It's just
But-
waiting to be opened.
Well, I guess also, do you think within the Dark Aether right now, is Victus alive? And I always assume Dark Aether was like,
Antimatter or something?
yeah, it's just like, you're basically just particles. There's not really any semblance of you, but I might be wrong.
There seems to be this general assumption in the community that the Dark Aether is the Upside Down from Stranger Things.
Right.
And
which
I
is
don't
just
think-
an awful way to. Yeah, that would be like awful just to say, okay, we're just going to give up and everyone's just going to go to this horrible place. I don't think it's like that.
I mean, we've also kind of even connecting back to the Samantha's mom thing, the afterlife, right? Like Monty says, it's a whole nother can of worms. So I guess technically, we haven't even seen that, or you know, they could be back in some way, shape, and form, even if it's not physical.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. They've kind of set it up to where they can do whatever they want.
There is really so little known about the Dark Aether. That's really, I mean, a hard one to say because we can conjecture about rockets and about differing timelines and stuff, but there is truly very little known about the Dark Aether and what it means for
Yeah.
anything to be banished there.
Curious if this year's Ether, will this be brought up at all? But I don't know. We'll see.
I hope.
So, next question from Sif, I guess. Sif, what is the narrative significance of Dr. Monty being affected by the Dark Aether? Why would they bring it up if it seemingly has no effect on him?
What is he referring to here? Honestly, I'm not recalling.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I was worried about that.
So, like in the talk, like whenever Nikolai's talking, he talks about the Great War was inside of all of us, whatever. He mentions how both Monty and the Shadow Man were corrupted, one by their own ambition, one trying to save their friend. And I mean, you can see, the squid head is that's very obviously corrupted in some way.
Right.
He's not part of the Apothicon hive mind or anything, but there is some level of like corruption, and I don't know how that would affect his judgment, because I don't see how that it would either way.
This is just absolute speculation, so it's not. I don't know. I always like the idea that Monty was the Dark Aether, or like the embodiment of it. So, that's kind of, I don't know how I always viewed it. But
Yeah, there's the whole thing with like how him and Shadow Man were like one being. So, and then it was split, the duality and all that became Keepers and Apothicons, and so
Right,
seems
you
that's
can see that.
I feel
the
like
part that I'm
Shadow-
trying to. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry. It just seems like the Shadow Man is the lesser of two evils. So I just always imagine that. Like Monty is I always saw Monty as the actual source of all corruption or something like that. But that's again speculation. I'm not
Anyway.
sure.
Almost the idea that the closer you get to corruption, the more deceptive it becomes, or to absolute evil, the more deceptive it becomes.
Yeah, and like I saw that, even if there weren't physically the same being or something like that, like the Shadow Man was deceived by Monty, and like that's why he bears his mark. You know what I mean? Like they're two friends. Like I don't know. It seems like that. All of that, I wouldn't be surprised if actually came from Monty. And then I always think of the timeline when it says like the two the first beings in creation, and it's like the Shadow Man, or it says the Keepers in the Ether, and then it's like Shadow Man and Monty. And I feel like parallel construction suggests that one comes from the Keepers and one comes from the Ether. So I always assume that Shadow Man was a Keeper, and Monty is referring to like an embodiment of or personification of the Ether.
Well, to go back to the question one last time, or I know, Tack, you want to say something too, but real quick, why would they bring it up if it seemingly had no effect on him? Rad, what you quoted there, it didn't say that he was affected by the Dark Aether. It said it was affected by his desire to save his friend, right? Because the one that was corrupted by ambition was
He
clearly
says
Shadow Man.
They were both corrupted.
Right, both
One
were corrupted.
for this, one for this.
But both corrupted by the Dark Aether, or both corrupted by their circumstances, or by the results of their actions?
I could see, yeah, I could see what you're saying there. I took it literally, you mean, yeah, like, it's corrupted by the Ether 115. There might be more context in that whole spiel that I'm not mentioning, but...
I thought it was the opposite. I thought the ambition would have been Monty, and the Shadow Man would have been to save his friend. Because, like I said, going with the theme of the lesser of two evils, it seems like the Shadow Man does kind of want to put an end to all of this in a warped way.
Maybe. Well, there's the whole thing with Monty saying, you know, how Shadow Man was a dear friend. He used to be the best guy, but...
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But I feel like it's kind of the reciprocal. Like, the Shadow Man could say, like, you know, this was my friend, but he's gone too far, and now I have to stop him. Because, I don't know, Monty just seems more ambitious than the Shadow Man.
It's possible. I mean, Shadow Man's got the whole gambit of creating the Mob of the Dead pocket dimension, just setting a trap for the future. It seems like he's got pretty ambitious. Because Monty just wants things to stay the same, you know. Well, not stay the same, but he's trying to just keep it the same.
Yeah, I thought that, so it's definitely created by the Shadow Man. Like, I know the Shadow Man is talking to the Warden in the Influence, but
yeah,
I thought
like
there was
Blood
some
Dead, he's
weird...
like, you know, yeah, you'll take these souls, give them to me, and then it'll create a trap for someone in the future, which is Richtofen. But
Because I just feel like that inevitably just connects back to Monty. Like, if Monty bestowed the Shadow Man, like, if there was some connection, and, like, he has the Mark of the Beast or whatever,
well,
to
probably
me...
no, it was both of their ideas in the first place, and then,
Yeah,
you know, split. But
like, that's
Yeah.
like his aesthetic.
So, one of the things that like you guys said on the previous answer, so little is known about the Dark Aether, so I can't add much there. But every time I hear about Dark Aether and corruption, and I think back to the old lore of the Black Sun versus the Golden Sun, you know, and how
Mhm.
and in the Vrilya mythology essentially, and just, you know, trying to match that up kind of to Apothecon's Keepers in some way. And so that's, anytime I hear Dark Aether, I sometimes just think about like the Black Sun, or, you know, so just the idea of like Monty being the corruption, like you guys were talking about corrupting others. It's I don't know. That's all I can think of, and I hope maybe people can draw connections there that I can't articulate.
yeah, it's a good poll. Yeah, good questions, good answers. Next question from 20th of Eras. Will Kino Der Toten have a cutscene?
I hope so.
Will Kino Der Toten have a cutscene?
Wow. All right, let's think about. You think about this one.
I don't know what's more confusing.
Will?
Well, that question or the original radio from the Kino intro?
Good parallel.
Because I mean, I would love it to.
I mean, maybe this is a mistranslation thing, and he means should it have a cutscene? Yes.
I'm gonna
maybe?
go with Will.
Maybe it's from 2009.
Oh, okay. So he's asking. So he's not up
He's
to
a time traveler.
speed. So he's still back in.
Oh, he's going dark. He's a There East.
Yeah, Dark Ops, baby.
Rock
Well,
on,
in the
dude.
remake of Kino,
I mean, I buy the dedication, man.
I
A lot
think
of
I don't
spoilers out
think
there.
so. I think it's too early. I think Kino's going to be too. You know, it's we're dealing into this, you know, late 60s, 70s, 80s here. We're not dealing with early 60s. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even the last game that we played. I mean, took place entirely in World War II, and I mean from the leaks so far from Treyarch for this upcoming game, I think it looks like it's going to be set in the Cold War. And so that's like you were saying, Taka. We're going more towards the post World War II. So everything we've seen so far, Noct, Varuk, Tashino, Numa, Duriza, that's all World War II. So
But
will it have a cutscene?
I was
don't know.
confused about what you're talking. I was like,
you really
what?
think like they would jump the shark though, like with time travel? I mean, like didn't those leaks also say that JFK would be in the Pentagon fighting zombies?
All right. Next
Yeah,
question.
that's like
Like, well, that's such an extreme jump. I mean, we're not
Yeah,
even
no
you're
way.
like
That's jumping the shark.
jumping the shark. You're not even just jumping a shark. You're jumping an entire ocean, specifically the Atlantic. So.
But I do believe there's definitely a super Easter egg once you complete all the maps. There's no doubt in my mind that they would ever skip over something like that. So
Yeah, I think the community would be very happy with that sort of outcome. Agreed.
Yeah. No. Okay. All right. That's the end of part 1 of the Q&A. So tune in next week for part 2. See ya.
Bye.